A lot of people have been asking about my Firewall Sorceress build and why I use her for certain magic finding needs in Diablo 2 Resurrected. They say, Coooley, why Firewall? Is it only Firewall? Are there other skills that you use too? In this video, I'm going to answer all those questions and more and let you know why I use this specific build for certain magic farming needs in D2R. Let's dive in. This is Angel, my level 90 Firewall Sorceress, and yeah, she's a beast. I really do like Firewall Sorceresses just because of the sheer speed that they can wipe out some of the most common bosses in the game. You can absolutely obliterate Mephisto and Dariel, and I'm talking within a matter of seconds, both of these bosses go down. If you do have help getting to the other areas of the game, she can actually single-handedly take on a player's 8 Baal. No static field, no nothing, and it's pretty efficient. The damage per second from Firewall is pretty amazing. So for the sheer speed that this character can wipe out some of the most commonly farmed bosses for magic finding, that's why I built this character. When I farm bosses or single target monsters, this is the build that I use right here. This is a strictly Firewall build. There's no other skills that I use. So since it's a Firewall build, we're going to put 20 points into Firewall. We're going to put 20 points into Fire Mastery. And then we're going to put 20 points into the damage synergy Warmth. Firewall does have another synergy in Inferno, but it only gives plus 1% fire damage per level, and we actually don't need that, and there's a way better spot that we can put our skills, right? So if we go over to this tab right here, you'll notice that we have 20 points into Telekinesis, and you might have guessed that means we are an Energy Shield Sorceress. The rest of your points are going to go directly into Energy Shield. Energy Shield is basically going to allow you to use your mana as a shield for your life. So with all of these skills, we're able to do a 16k Firewall, which isn't high. That could actually be a lot higher as we get better gear. Not only do we have that, but we also have 74% absorbing energy shield right here. So that means basically 74% of any damage will be taken first to our mana pool, and Telekinesis reduces that amount of damage, so our mana pool has a better chance of staying alive. All throughout playing this build, in any boss battle that you're in, you're going to want to keep a healthy eye on your mana pool, because when that starts to get low, you're not necessarily in a lot of trouble depending on the situation, but you definitely don't want to be out of mana. You always want to be able to cast Firewall and always have something up to protect your life total. So we can take a quick look at the stat screen. You notice that the poison resistance is a little low with this build. Ideally, I'd like that to be a little higher. Poison is sort of your weak point, but I do have a couple of tricks that I'm going to show you on the build that can sort of negate that. And no, it's not antidote potions. The rest of the resistances are pretty decent, but whenever you have an Energy Shield Sorceress with any of these other resistances, they only actually matter when damage goes to your life total. So you can actually get away with your other resistances being pretty low before you actually have to start worrying. So we put just enough points into strength to wear our gear, and we put just enough points into dexterity each level to maintain max block or 75% block. And then what I actually do with the rest of my points, I actually split my points between vitality and energy. I try to do it throughout leveling as needed. So earlier on, you might be putting more points into vitality so that when monsters burn through your mana orb, you're not just insta dead. But then once you get to a more manageable level, I would say like above level 80, you can start probably putting all of the rest of your points into energy to really sort of build the pillow fortress to your life total. Now, the reason why we do this is because we use Firewall and because bosses like to move around, we don't want them moving around a lot, right? We want them to sit there and cook in that Firewall. So our strategy with just about any boss that we encounter is we're going to tele-stomp them. We're going to get obnoxiously close to them. Right up close and personal. We want them to stop moving around and start getting distracted by trying to hit us and, you know, interacting with us at close range and sitting there and cooking in the Firewall that we're lighting right up under them. Sometimes they'll be distracted by the Merc, but usually it just won't take long. They won't have enough time to kill your mercenary by the time they die to Firewall. And of course, you might be wondering what we've mustered up for gear, so let me take a minute and show you that. Now, I will say this with a caveat. The gear isn't necessarily as important as you might think. We've kind of switched out gear throughout this sorceress as we found more gear with more magic find on it. This helm, I actually gambled with my gold find barb. We took it to Larzook and we got 2 open sockets. So we put a couple of P topazes in there for 48% better chance of getting magic items. I actually like this because it allows us to very easily hit at least the 63% FCR breakpoint with a sorceress. But if you have one, you could use a Shaco and use some other items to help you hit your 63% cast breakpoint. But this is just a pretty sweet item that we found along the way. So this is what I've been using for the entirety of this build. The amulet is a pretty sweet 210 amulet here with damage taken to mana and resistances, a little bit to energy there. The damage taken to mana, a lot of people get this confused in ES Sorcs. They think that, oh man, everything's just gonna go, you know, it's like an endless loop. It's just gonna keep going back to the mana and then I'll have mana. It doesn't work that way. Damage has to go to your life total before it then retroactively goes to your mana. So if you have a big pillow fort of mana that's guarding your life total, that damage isn't going to go to your life total. So it doesn't quite work like people think it does, but it's still a nice little backup to have just in case your mana pool does get burned through and monsters start damaging your life total. It immediately starts giving you something back to your mana. The armor you might have guessed or we might have alluded to already is Tal's armor. We actually found this along the way, so we're using that. We couple that with Tal Rasha's Lidless Eye. If you just have 3 pieces equipped here, we get minus 15 to enemy fire resistance conveniently, so that works out well for us. And as you might notice, a very nice bonus to magic find from having a partial set equipped. The other piece of the Tal set that we use is the belt. Whereas we're a max block sorceress, this is actually kind of perfect for this setup, right? Plus 20 to dexterity and a decent boost to mana itself. And when you have a partial set equipped, it does give you 10% faster cast as well. There's no better gloves on a sorceress of like this build than Mage Fists. These fire skills are going to boost up the damage from your firewall, gives us 20% cast, and regenerate mana 25%. When we're an energy shield sorceress, we need our mana to continually regenerate extremely fast. So that's super important. We found a Bull Cathos ring along the way, so we have that. Ideally, that would be an SOJ, but it was pretty hard to come by. We have a Raven Frost for our other ring, huge boost to dexterity and a nice boost to mana. Our boots are Ethereal War Travelers. We did find these along the way, but probably will eventually swap them back out to what we were using before, which is these Skull Spur crafted boots right here. These are just regular caster boots that we crafted. We got a pretty nice roll on them. Regenerate mana plus 10%, increase maximum mana 5%. That's the max that you can roll on that. And probably the item that you're wondering about as to what I use to achieve max block, I use Sanctuary, which is a rune word you can make with the runes Ko, and Mal. Although this rolled pretty low, it also gives a pretty decent bonus to resistances. I think it can roll anywhere between 50 and 70. You know, if that rolled to 70, that could obviously boost up some of these resistances that you've seen over here and possibly max a lot of them out. Now, as for the charms, obviously we have Geed's Fortune because we're a magic finding sorceress, but some of you might be thinking, oh man, these gotta be all fire grand charms in here, right? We ain't that rich yet, man. These are all basically just mana charms, with the exception of one fire skiller that we have acquired along the way. But basically, if you could do anything with your charms when you don't have fire skillers, prefer mana. That's going to be the biggest shield or pillow fortress to your life total, so stack it up as much as you can. These charms down here, we have actually found some pretty decent ones along the way. 17 to life, 10 mana on a small charm. We get a 16-12 here as well. You actually want to find a ton of these with plus 2 to dexterity and ideally 17 to mana. When you find these charms, you get them all stacked up and all put together. This will actually allow you to convert this build pretty easily into a PvP Immortal Sorceress. Get him. Ideally, we're looking all for these charms right here. In our torch runs, we have found a very decent Sorceress torch here, 1420. On the swap, we do have a lower resistance wand. It's not really needed. There are certain circumstances where you can break an enemy's fire resistance with this, but I don't really use this a lot. Now, I told you that I had a little trick that I was going to show you that would help sort of negate some of the poison that you run into with this build, and that trick surrounds the mercenary that you select, right? A lot of times people go into Nightmare and they select the defensive mercenary for that Holy Freeze aura. What we do is we actually, we buy the Hell or normal version of the combat Merc, which is going to give you the prayer aura. Now, let me tell you why this is extremely good. Prayer itself, just inherently with your mercenary having prayer, it will sort of regenerate your life total very quickly in and of itself. But when you equip your Merc with an insight, you actually get double the healing, right? So that insight aura also triggers its own prayer. So if the user has prayer statted, it will double heal. So insight not only regenerates our mana with that meditation aura very quickly, which is super important in this build, but if you select a combat Merc, you're gonna get double healing out of prayer. So that is also super important and really helps in certain circumstances to negate any poison damage that you take. And again, ideally, I would say you would still want to get your poison as high as possible as far as resistances go. But when you select this specific type of mercenary and you have an insight equipped to him, it's really a good way to negate that in the meantime. And then for the mercenary's armor, he just has Duriel's shell, and we did find it in Dariel's visage along the way. Now, as far as areas that you're going to farm with this, you should be able to pretty easily farm Mephisto and Andariel in Hell, and by pretty easily, I mean really easily. Andariel dies in probably less than a second with this build. We just light up a firewall under her and she goes down quickly. Mephisto also dies relatively quickly, but you do have some other options in that area. A lot of the minions that spawn in the Durance level 3 are not naturally immune to fire. If they happen to be a unique spawn that is immune to fire, just skip them. Also, the Bloodlords that spawn in that area are immune to cold, and you can pretty easily take them out with this Firewall Sorceress as well. Now, again, the strategy is to get up close and personal, but you're gonna have to make a judgment call with what you're doing that on. You don't want to telestomp an entire group of monsters, even though you have max block. It's probably not gonna go too well. Will you die immediately? Probably not, but it's going to be rough. You kind of want to keep the distance. You want to gauge what's going on. When you see a big group of monsters, you can keep your distance and sort of drop a firewall on them, clear up some of them, and then telestomp the harder ones. As far as bosses go, you're going to want to get up close and personal. Stomp them so that they stop running around and that they start targeting you. And while they are, just drop that firewall underneath them and let them cook alive. Now, some people are saying that Firewall does more damage in D2R than it did in LOD. Check out these clips that I've put up side by side with me killing LOD Mephisto with the exact same build that I killed him with in D2R for comparison. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Does Firewall hit harder in D2R? Curious to see what you think. Thanks for watching this video, guys. I'll catch you in the next one.